You ever watch someone march into a hospital room, pull back the blanket on your pregnant wife like she's inspecting a fence line and think this cannot be real life? Because that's exactly what happened to me. Sheila Drummond, president of the Willow Ridge HOA, swaggered into room 207 with a clipboard, a knockoff volunteer badge, and a look that said she owned the place. Emily, my wife, was 31 weeks along, hooked up to monitors, her heart rate fragile but steady, and this woman leaned over like she had the right to touch her. I stepped between them before her hand got close. My voice was low, steady. Touch her again, and that badge turns into felony evidence. Security was right behind me, escorting Sheila out while she ranted about bylaws and community safety. I watched her go and thought, this isn't over. It's just the beginning of a war, and somehow I'm the target. We moved into Willow Ridge 3 years back, chasing the promise of peace. Quiet streets, clean sidewalks, families grilling on weekends. We thought we'd found our second chance. We'd lost our daughter Ava at 23 weeks. Never heard her cry, never saw her eyes open. That grief doesn't leave it, hides it, lingers. So we built a bench in the community garden under a big sycamore with a brass plaque for her name. It wasn't fancy, but it gave us somewhere to sit when the anxiety came, somewhere for Emily to breathe when her blood pressure spiked. That bench was sacred to us. But Sheila didn't see sacred. She saw unauthorized structure. That's who she was. If it wasn't written in her little HOA rulebook, it didn't belong. First came the letters about mailbox colors, then sidewalk cracks, then citations for how I parked my car at a slight angle. Petty nonsense. Then she accused Emily of violating residency continuity because of her hospital visits. The pettiness escalated drip by drip until the night Emily's blood pressure spiked and we landed in the ER. And like some villain out of a bad sitcom, Sheila walked into that room with her clipboard trying to play God. Here's what she didn't know. I wasn't just Emily's husband. I was also head of risk compliance for the county hospital system. That fake badge she waved around. It came from my department. She thought HOA power extended into a hospital. She thought she was untouchable. That was her first mistake. I filed a formal complaint the same night. But deep down, I knew paperwork wasn't enough. Sheila wasn't going to fold. Sure enough, the very next morning, taped to our front door, a new violation notice. The bench, the one we built for Ava, was labeled a landscape obstruction. Remove it within 72 hours or face daily fines. That was the moment I realized it wasn't just harassment. It was targeted intimidation. At first, I tried to convince myself to let it go. Emily needed calm, not battles. I thought maybe I should just pay the fine or even take the bench down. Maybe then she'd back off. But the thought of ripping out the only place we had for Ava, it twisted my stomach. Still at night, lying awake next to Emily, I wondered if I was being selfish. Was my pride worth the stress on her? Maybe Sheila was right. Maybe I was the one making trouble. That doubt crept in heavy like a fog. There were nights I sat in the dark staring at the wall, thinking about giving up, thinking maybe surrendering was safer. For the first time, I felt powerless, completely powerless. And that's when Sheila almost won, because the worst weapon someone like her wields isn't citations, it's despair. But then I remembered her face in that hospital room, the way she looked at Emily, like she was an object, like she owned her. That memory hit me like a spark. Protecting my family didn't mean backing down. Protecting my family meant fighting back. That was the night I stopped doubting and started preparing. The first crack in Sheila's wall came from someone inside her circle. Dr. Keller, the physician on duty that night, also HOA secretary. I cornered him in the break room. He stirred cream into his coffee, avoiding my eyes. I pressed him. He finally slid a notarized statement across the table. I witnessed unauthorized physical contact by Sheila Drummond on patient in room 207. 11 words, but they hit like a hammer. Pair that with the hospital security footage, time-stamped crystal clear. Sheila walking in, reaching for Emily. Me stepping between them. Security pulling her out. Less than 20 seconds, that said it all. I copied everything, 3 USB drives, one in a safe, one in my pocket, one labeled Room 207 for my brother Brennan, who just happened to be a circuit court judge. And then something happened I didn't expect. Neighbors started reaching out. Dana and Carlos, they got cited while Carlos was recovering from surgery. Mrs. Ellison, her grandson, wasn't allowed to visit because his car had decals. Over and over the same story. Sheila picked the weak moments. She went after the people who couldn't fight back. It was never about rules. It was about control. Carlos handed me a folder he'd been building photos, timestamps, violation notices. He muttered, "She always waits until the husband isn't home, goes after the quiet ones." That's when it clicked. This wasn't just my fight. It was everyone's. So I gathered everything: footage, witness statements, bylaw edits, violation records, built a packet thick enough to choke a shredder. Brennan drafted a cease and desist order, sealed and filed. I circulated a community affidavit, 24 households signed. Even Mallory, the receptionist, who usually kept her head down, came forward with her own story. Mrs. Ellison, frail but fierce, stood tall and said Sheila once cited her for a bird feeder she'd had since 2004. Years of fear spilled out. Sheila had made people afraid to grieve, afraid to decorate, afraid to live. But now she wasn't facing one family. She was facing all of us. The night of the HOA board meeting felt like a trial. Sheila strutted in chin-high heels, clutching her clipboard like a weapon. She launched into her usual spiel: violations, infractions, legal jargon twisted into threats. But this time the room wasn't nodding along. Brennan stood, walked forward, and handed a sealed envelope to the vice president. Silence fell as it was opened. Formal cease and desist, he read, filed in coordination with county legal and hospital ethics. You could see it, the first flicker of fear across Sheila's face. Her mask cracked. I rose next, walked to the media table, set down the USB. My voice was calm. Let's roll the footage. The lights dimmed, the screen lit up. Room 207, Sheila entering, hand reaching, my body blocking, security arriving. No sound was needed. The images spoke for themselves. When it ended, I turned to the room. This isn't about a bench. This is about power used to intimidate. And tonight it ends. I laid down Dr. Keller's statement, the chain of custody form, the community affidavit with 24 signatures. I didn't shout. I didn't need to. The evidence filled every corner of that room. And for the first time, Sheila had nothing to say. No one on the board moved to defend her. They didn't even bother voting. Her authority was suspended on the spot. 3 days later, she resigned. No speech, no apology. Just a 3-sentence letter blaming declining health. No one bought it. The new board erased every violation from our record. They even added a clause: memorial benches, once approved, were permanently protected. Not because I asked, but because the community demanded it. Sheila's throne was gone. Her clipboard, her fake power gone. And that's where it ends. Sheila thought she could bully her way through life with a set of bylaws and a smirk. But she forgot one thing. You can only push people so far before they push back. The lesson: never confuse a clipboard with real power.